Now you should be able to hear me. I was muted for a second. You know, this software that we use can be very clunky sometimes when it comes to streaming, but we will not let that stop us. I will read your intro. I am Nathan Hale. Welcome back to Spin Cycle Live. We have some great things to share with you all today. Some good news all around. So much to cover, so much to talk about. First, tell me how you are doing. Are you having a good day? How has your Wednesday been? Or sorry, today's Monday. You know, I'm getting my days all mixed up today. I was on the phone earlier and I thought they were in the fall semester for some reason. It's spring right now. It's starting to warm out. This warm weather's throwing me all off. It's like 60 degrees out right now in Kansas City. All the snow has melted. It is fantastic. I mean, what more do I have to ask for than this weather? I mean, it's beautiful out. Had the windows open a minute ago. The banging outside has stopped. You might remember for the last show, we had a whole bunch of banging happening outside. Well, it's gone now. We have so much to talk about. Germany just had elections. We had some local news happening here in the state of Missouri. We have some CNN, or sorry, MSNBC had a host that left. We'll talk about that at the very end of the show. But please tell me, how are you all doing today? I hope you're doing good. If you don't know, we broadcast this show every Monday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, right here on whatever platform you're watching. We are on X, we are on Instagram, we are on Rumble, we are on YouTube, we are on all the platforms you could possibly want to watch. If you missed the show, you want to come back later, you can watch the recorded shows on Rumble as well as on YouTube and on my personal X account. They are all saved there. Easiest way to do it on YouTube. If you're not subscribed or following us on all the other platforms, please do so. I also have a TikTok account. I'm at Homo18 also on TikTok. You can find me on all the platforms. Give me a follow over there. We have short form content going up, show clips, all the good stuff happening over there. But I will not wait any longer. Let's get into our first story of today. Germany just had elections. Let's talk about the German elections. So Germany, if you didn't know, is a country over in Europe. They've been having a lot of changes recently. We covered earlier on this show, maybe about a month or two ago, that snap elections were triggered in Germany. So the German electoral system works a lot different than the United States does. So in Germany, they move things along really quickly. A lot of European countries have very snappy elections. They call them snap elections for the reason, because they really only have a few weeks to campaign and get prepared for an election when it happens, because they run on a parliamentary system, which basically that means that Germany, they have a handful of different parties, right? And usually one party does not get enough seats within their parliament, like their legislature essentially, to have a majority. So they form coalitions together. So what's happening inside of Germany, just a quick update, was Olaf Scholz was the current chancellor of Germany. He had I'm losing the word. I'm losing my thoughts here. He had a coalition. He had a coalition built between a handful of different other parties in Germany that gave his party, which was the Social Democratic Party of Germany. They have quite long names for the parties over there. The Social Democratic Party of Germany, which is considered a center-left party, it gave them the majority forming that coalition. But what happened was, I believe it was gosh, who was it? I believe it was I believe it was either the Greens or the Left, or it was some other party that they had a coalition with. They decided that they didn't want to be a part of Olaf Scholz's coalition any longer. They didn't want to be a part of the government, so they pulled out of that coalition. That meant that there was no longer a majority coalition within the German legislature that triggered those snap elections to happen. Those happened yesterday. It has been 24 hours, and we already have confirmed election results back from the German elections. And this leads me to my side point on the fact that nobody here in the United States, besides us conservatives, really feel like we have issues with elections in this country. I mean, we had races that took weeks to get called in several elections over the past, few weeks, over the past few months. And I just think it's crazy that we here in the United States have we've gotten used to the fact that we don't know election results within 24 hours or the night of the election happening for the most part. Confirmed election results, at least we have projections. But over in other countries, they have all their votes in within 24 hours, right? So let's talk about this, right? So what happened was it was a massive failing by the left-wing parties over in Germany. The right rang superior. The conservatives won that majority. We were seeing this kind of happening across the world right now. The pendulum is really swinging back towards conservatism. I mean, we saw it here in the United States. We're going to see it here in Canada later this year, hopefully, right? Unless they totally go to hell in a handbasket. We saw it in Germany. We almost saw it in the United Kingdom. It's kind of crazy that we didn't see in the United Kingdom. And there's a handful of things that led to that. We won't discuss that right. I was talking about Germany. But let's read this article. There's some really cool graphics in here. I know we don't usually talk about international news that much, but when elections happen, I like to cover them because they're interesting, right? Oh, we saw it in France too. France just had elections as well. So, all right. So this is from DW.com. Which I'm not sure what DW stands for, but I believe it's a European outlet. So German election results explained in graphics. Really cool graphics. So mainstream conservatives led by Friedrich Merz have won Germany's 2025 election. Here's a look in charts at the win and losses, seats in parliament, possible coalition outcomes, and voter demographics. All right. So who won Germany's election? So with vote counting finished, parliamentary results show the Conservative Christian Democratic Union, the CDU, led by Chancellor candidate Friedrich Merz, and its sister Christian Social Union, the CSU, won the election. So those are two kind of parties that came together. They're kind of the same thing now. They're led by a single leader. So they're the largest. They're the largest conservative party in the country. They're considered center right. And then the far right alternative for Germany, the AfD, was projected to finish second, which they ended up doing. So here's kind of a nice little bar graph at kind of the overall of what happened in Germany. So the SPD here, which is the Social Democratic Party of Germany, they were the ruling party of the time. So this is the party of Olaf Scholz, who was previously in charge and whose loss of leadership or lack thereof, his lack of leadership, caused these snap elections to happen in the first place. So they only brought in about 16% of the overall vote. And you can see here that the Christian Democratic Union and the Alternative for Germany party, this black and blue bar right here, they brought in a combined around 50% of the vote share for the most part, which is kind of insane to think that between two parties, that was about 50% of the population. And everybody else, the Green, FDP, I believe the FDP was who the Social Democratic Party was in a coalition with that caused the snap elections to happen. All the other parties have around under 10%, except for the Greens. They came in fourth. All right, so which parties had the biggest gains and losses? So the biggest winner of the election in terms of voter gain was the right-wing populist party, the AfD, which nearly doubled its vote share, which is kind of a big deal. It's interesting to see that these kind of more right-wing parties, I'm using the term right-wing very loosely here, right? I'm not super familiar with the policies of all the different parties internationally, right? But we have to remember that here in the United States, we have center right, we have moderates, we have far right people who are all part of the Republican Party under that whole umbrella. In other countries, such like in Europe and Germany, for instance, they break those up a lot more. So people who are more right-leaning or far right end up in their own party. The more center right, moderate people kind of end up in their own. So I'm just kind of going along with the terms that are being used right now by the news outlets in Germany. I'm not sure how accurate that actually is, but just follow with me, right? Give me the benefit of that here. So it's interesting to see that these kind of more far right-wing parties are doing a lot better in these European countries. So we saw that happen in the UK when they just had their elections not too long ago, where Reform UK, which is kind of it was a brand new party over in the United Kingdom. That's definitely a far right party, or definitely a much more conservative party than the Conservatives in the United Kingdom. They did really well. And the kind of the idea behind that was it could have been more of a lash out by the people of the United Kingdom to get more like actual conservatism. They feel like the Conservative Party of the UK has really failed them. So they put a lot of vote share in for reform. At least that's what I've heard, and what I've heard from interviews with the conservative leadership as well as the reform leadership. So it's interesting to see that kind of reform party in Germany also did very well along with it over in England. Interesting to see. So the center-left Social Democrats, the SPD, led the current Chancellor Olaf Scholz, recorded not only its worst results in a federal election, but also its largest loss of votes compared to previous elections. So the neoliberal Free Democratic Party, the FDP, whose withdrawal from the coalition triggered the snap elections, also suffered heavy losses. The party won't enter the Bundestag after failing to meet the 5% threshold. So there's a whole bunch of different parties over in the UK, or sorry, not the UK, over in Germany. And the way that their legislature kind of works is they have to get a 5% vote share to get seats in the Bundestag, which is their parliament. So these are all of the parties that got over that. So you can see the FDP got 4.3% of the vote. So they did not make it in. And the Free Democratic Party was the one that was in that coalition with the chancellor at the time. So we can see that that BSW and FDP did not make it in, and all of the other parties. So about around 15% of the total vote share from that election did not get any seats in. So they have a very complicated system. The Germans, a country of engineers, very complicated voting system. Basically, the way that I understand it work is they have ranked choice voting. So essentially, if your first choice was FDP, but your second choice was maybe like the Greens, for instance, FDP did not get the vote share, so your vote would have gone into the Greens vote share, for instance. So that's how it kind of works out like that. It's a very strange system, very very alien compared to what we have in the United States, right? So it's interesting. It's political science, right? It's interesting to see. So here is the win-loss graph for the overall elections. So you can see that the current ruling party lost the majority, while ADF brought in by far the most, as well as the Christian Democratic Union brought in a little bit. So the Christian Democratic Union and the AfD are the two kind of conservative parties of Germany. Some of these smaller parties did pretty good too, but the Greens and FDP lost a lot. All right, so coming down here a little bit, I'm going past some of this stuff. There's a good graph. So they have a nice little chart right here to show you how you can get to a majority within the parliament. So the Christian Democratic Union and the Alternative for Germany parties here, they will probably partner together, and you can see that gets them to that 316 minimum seats. It gets them over that threshold. So they will probably come together and form a coalition government. If I had to guess, they're the two most similar parties, unless one of these other parties, for whatever reason, which I don't see, these are all like left-leaning parties, they would either get in with the ADF or with the Christian Democratic Union. So I mean, there's no way that they could do, and there's no other singular party. I mean, even if they all combine together, which is very unlikely with ADF, they would get over that and leave the Christian Democrats out, which is the more center-right party. But likely will happen is the Christian Democrats and the Alternative for Germany will get together. But we can see, too, the other interesting thing is even if all the other parties that are not the right-wing parties got together to form a coalition, they could not get to that minimum number. So the ball really is in with the conservatives right now. There will be a conservative government for the foreseeable future in Germany. So interesting to see. There's another kind of interactive chart down here that shows the win-loss ratio. You can go play around with this. Links in the description if you want to see this chart for yourself. But you can kind of play around and see how the different parties did. The last thing I want to show is right below this that shows age. So you can see here that Alternative for Germany, they did really, really good in the 18 to 44 category. That was where a lot of their vote share came from. but even kind of coming down across the whole age board until we get to around retirement age, they really start to see a drop off. Same thing with the more traditional center-right part of the Christian Democrats. They didn't do so good with the younger population. I mean, they did 13% versus ADF did 21%. I mean, they were in the 18 to 24 category. The only party that beat that was the left party, and they only had 25% of that vote share opposed to 21. So that's a pretty 50-50 split right there between the Gen Z vote over in Germany. I mean, it's really interesting to see kind of how politics is shifting and how young people are really starting to come around to voting towards more conservative leaders in power. I think it's interesting. I think it's great. I'm here for it. So, last thing is Christian Democrats did the best with the 70 plus. That's not surprising. Conservatives do really good with older people. That's how it is. Last thing is there is a map down here that shows the entirety of Germany. So the blue that you see is the Alternative for Germany part. That's kind of the right-wing part, the far-right party we were talking about a minute ago. So it's all that blue. And all the black and the gray is the Christian Democrats. So that's the more center-right party. That will be the ruling party. So there's an interesting trend that we see on this map that shows blue all the way over in the far right side of the map and kind of the black and gray kind of all over the rest of it. We don't see a whole lot of black over the blue area. We don't see a whole lot of blue over in the black area. I'll give you a second to guess why that might be. And it's interesting because if you know anything about what Germany looked like, pre-Berlin Wall coming down, it was divided between East and West Germany. East Germany is all of this blue right here. West Germany is all of this black. And right along that exact border right there, I mean, you can literally see it across all these blue districts, was where the breaking point was between East and West Germany. So it's interesting today to see how the Berlin Wall, post 40 years later, being torn down, 40 plus years later, how the voting patterns of Germans are very similar, right? It's interesting to see. So that's all I wanted to point out there regarding all of that. So interesting elections happening over in Germany. Let's move on to some more US stories, but please go onto this website, play around this map, zoom in on it a little bit. You can play around, you can see the exact turnout and exactly, what happened, who that representative is. Fun to play around with. So go have some fun with it. So let's move on. So here's an article from Fox News. SCOTUS turns down abortion clinic buffer zone challenge. Thomas slams abdication of duty. So Justice Thomas wants the High Court to provide clarity on a legal precedent governing abortion buffer zones. So right now in the United States, if you want to go and protest an abortion clinic, you have to be a certain amount of feet away from it, and you can't harass people, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, to be honest with you. I don't agree with people going and getting abortions, but I also don't want people coming up and harassing me about the choices I'm making. I wouldn't want leftists coming up to me when I'm trying to go shop at a certain place and harassing me and trying to hand me literature and everything, tell me why I'm wrong. So I get it. I get why it's there. It makes sense, right? I think any rational person kind of go along that line. People don't want to be harassed when they're trying to go and do something, right? So the U.S. Supreme Court declined Monday to hear pro-life challenge against protest restrictions around abortion clinics in Illinois, as activists argued the laws infringe on their First Amendment rights, a decision met with fiery dissent by Justice Clarence Thomas. The court rejected appeals from Coalition Life, which describes itself as, quote, America's largest professional sidewalk counseling organization in New Jersey and Illinois, which had challenged previous lower courts' rulings that dismissed their lawsuits. Pro-life activists in the case argued that buffer zones, which were established after a previous Supreme Court decision in Colorado to shield patients from harassment around abortion clinics, violates their First Amendment rights to free speech. In the case decided in 2000, the Supreme Court upheld a Colorado statute that prohibited individuals from knowingly approaching within 80 feet within 8 feet of another person within 100 feet of a healthcare facility entrance without consent for a purpose such as passing out literature, displaying signs, or engaging in oral protest, education, or counseling. So this is an attempt by the pro-life groups to get closer to people who are going to abortion clinics, to be able to hand them more literature, to be able to kind of talk to them and convince them not to go and get that abortion, which I think that less people getting abortions is a great thing. I'm here for it. But I also have seen what a lot of these pro-life groups are like in person, and they are very harassy. And they do have a quality of going up to people and really degrading them and making them feel really upset about what they're doing, which, like I said, I don't agree with getting an abortion. I don't think people should be getting an abortion nearly in the numbers they are getting right now. But I'd be more on board with rolling back these procedures, or be more on board with rolling back the rules in place of how far you or how close you can get someone at an abortion clinic. If the pro-life groups are a little more, I don't know what the right word is, kind, respectful to the other people involved, they tend to really be kind of like leftists in that sense, where they really get up in people's faces. At least what I've seen, pretty obnoxious in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. I think that I stand by a Supreme Court's decision not to hear this case. It would be interesting to see what their ruling would be. And it's interesting to me that they are not hearing this case, considering that they are a conservative Supreme Court that did overturn Roe v. Wade. Do you think they would jump at the opportunity to get people closer to people going and getting an abortion, help to convince them not to? So it's just interesting to me. You know, we always hear that the Supreme Court makes they make such extreme, rulings and stuff like that in recent time with these conservative justices and everything. And I always like to point out the times where they don't hear cases that they could very much hear, or, they vote in favor of something that doesn't seem like they would necessarily vote in favor of it. So just interesting to point out. Go read the story, link in the bio if you want to read the whole thing. But I think it's just an interesting story. All right. So moving on. Let's talk about Missouri for a second. So Missouri House passes state takeover of St. Louis Police Department. So close to home news right here. So I'm from St. Louis. I'm very familiar with the crime rates in St. Louis, but let's talk about let's see what the Missouri House is up to. All right. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department is one step closer to being under state control. The Missouri House of Representatives voted 106 to 47 on Tuesday to pass legislation placing control of the St. Louis police under a mostly governor-appointed board. If the bill becomes law in its current form, a 5-person board would assume control of the police department. The board would consist of the mayor and 4 appointed commissioners. Speaking after the vote, the bill's sponsor, Representative Brad Christ, C-H-R-I-S-T, Brad Christ. I don't know. By the way, he is from the St. Louis area. He's from kind of South St. Louis, so he gets it. He knows the area. Said the makeup of the board is likely to be a discussion point in the Senate. So currently, the department is run by the mayor's office. St. Louis Mayor Tashara Jones, I think is how you pronounce her name, who has vehemently opposed the plan, released a statement Thursday after the bill passed, saying the House, quote, voted to overturn the will of the people. All right, so let's talk about this a little bit. Number one thing, Missouri has like the highest murder rate per capita. I actually have the list pulled up right here. So Missouri has the highest murder and non-negligent manslaughter in the entire country. Second only to Baltimore, Maryland, and then Detroit, Michigan. It's pretty high there, and I think that's the main cause of concern that a lot of people, especially here in Missouri, feel like, who are from St. Louis, are the issues that are happening with the Missouri Police Department. Is that we don't want to be the highest for anything, right? I mean, no city wants to be the highest for any kind of crime, especially like the one that ends in like a loss of life. So I think that's where a lot of this sentiment is coming from. And this has been something that has been tossed around the legislature actually quite some time now. It's been talked about for a while. It'll be interesting if it actually happens. So another thing to talk about is, so Kansas City is also a state-run police department, and they're still in the they're still in the top 10 here. They're actually number 6 for murder and non-negligent manslaughter, but they are at a 30.93 per 100,000 people versus St. Louis is a 66.07. So it's almost double that in St. Louis as it is in Kansas City for murder and non-negligent manslaughter, which is still not great. It's still not something that I would want to see in my state. But we have to remember, too, these are Democrat-run cities, right? So at the end of the day, they're still Democrat-run cities. And they're big cities. They have a lot of crime they have inside them. It's hard to keep all that under control with the current way that things have been done. So, I mean, even if the St. Louis rate could get down closer to Kansas City, that 30 rate, I think that would be a great improvement. You're cutting it in half, right? So I think this is a great move by the Missouri legislature. I think it's going to work out well for them. I know a lot of people complained by the fact that, well, they're doing it in Kansas City, and Kansas City is still pretty high. But I think there's a lot of factors at play here. And if we could move St. Louis down to closer to where that Kansas City number is even lower than that, I think this would be a great win and a good idea by the legislature. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll keep you updated on all that. I mean, we'll even see if it gets passed by the Senate. I don't even know when the Senate's going to be hearing about it, but I'll keep my eye on it. If there's some changes, I'll definitely cover it on the show a little bit later on. We might know by Wednesday what's going to happen with this bill. So I suspect that if it passed both legislatures, it'll likely be signed in by the governor. But you know, we'll see. We will see how it goes. But the murder rate in Missouri is not great right now. It's number 1. But you know, great governor, or great mayor, great city that's been, you know, really following all that up. So don't have very nice things to say about the St. Louis government right now. Yeah. All right. So let's move on. We got a couple more stories to cover. So ex-Secret Service agent and conservative personality Dan Bongino is picked as the FBI deputy director. So you didn't hear, Kash Patel was confirmed as the new director of the FBI. And after that was chosen, Donald Trump picked Dan Bongino to be the deputy. So deputy director is, they basically are running the day-to-day operations of the FBI. I've heard Dan Bongino speak for years on Fox News. I've seen him time and time again on Hannity. He's an ex-Secret Service agent. I think he'll do a great job in the role. But let's read the story. Let's see how it goes. All right. So Dan Bongino, a former U.S. Secret Service agent who ran unsuccessfully for office, gained fame as a conservative pundit, TV shows, and a popular podcast, has been chosen to serve as FBI director. President Donald Trump announced the appointment Sunday night in a post on his Truth Social platform, praising Bongino, quote, as a man of incredible love and passion for our country. He called the announcement, quote, great news for law enforcement and the American justice. The selection places 2 staunch Trump allies atop the nation's premier federal law enforcement agency at a time when Democrats have raised alarms that the Republican president could seek to use the FBI to target his adversaries. Bongino would serve under Kash Patel, a Trump loyalist who was sworn in as FBI director at the White House on Friday and who has signaled his intent to reshape the bureau, including by relocating hundreds of employees from its Washington headquarters and placing greater emphasis on the FBI's traditional crime-fighting duties. Sounds great to me. This sounds like exactly what I voted for, guys. I mean, let's be so honest. This sounds like exactly what I voted for. All right. So that's about all, Fat. So I just want to point that out. I think that Dan Bongino getting a spot in there, I think, is great. It kind of follows along the whole, like, Pete Hegseth becoming a defense sec. So I think he'll do a good job. I mean, I've heard Dan Bongino speak for years. I think he has family who's been in the FBI before. I mean, he's a Secret Service agent. I think he kind of gets it. I mean, the question always will be, can he handle the pressure of the job? Can he effectively do it? And I think we'll know more about that going forward. I think that it'll be a great move if these guys really pan out to be extremely successful at their jobs for the midterms to show, like, hey, you know, we had Republican leadership in Congress that got these guys through, and we have Republican leadership in the executive branch who nominated these people. And look at all the great things they've done, right? Just from border security alone, illegal border crossings being down 95% blows my mind, right? That happened so quickly. So if all of these people that Trump has put in place can be as effective as people like Tom Homan getting down our illegal border crossings and making all those deportations happen, that'll be amazing news for Republicans in the midterms, and will hopefully help us keep the House and the Senate going into those midterms, right? Because that's what we're planning for now, right? We're still a couple of years away from it, but we have to be preparing now, right? We have to keep fighting. We cannot stop fighting to keep those elections. We have to keep winning, right? It's going to take years to really change around the course of where our country is going, right? Can't just get down to, right? We have to keep that legislature. We have to keep the executive for quite some time. All right. So MSNBC. So let's end off with some great news. So Joy Reid, who was an MSNBC host, has been canned. They sent her packing. Her and her awful mop wigs got her out of there, right? No more Joy Reid. We cut her off, right? So MSNBC cancels the Joy Reid show as part of overall under new administration. So MSNBC is canceling Joy Reid's evening news show as part of the network's overhaul under the new presidential administration. You don't know who Joy Reid is? Yes, you do. I guarantee you've seen a clip of Joy Reid one time or another. All she was on CNN was just clickbait for the right and for the left, right? To push their woke agenda on Americans, to push MSNBC even farther left than it already was, right? Surprise at all. So she was the host of The Reid on MSNBC since 2020, and she discussed political news and events. Reid also anchored The Reid Report and AM Joy for the network in the past. So I have a highlight reel of Joy Reid to kind of walk us through. So it's from the New York Post. So let's walk through some of her best moments. So in December of 2017, a series of homophobic posts on her personal blog, The Reid Report, written between 2007 and 2009, reemerged, in which she expressed disgust about men kissing, spouted off against gay marriage, and linked homosexuality to attraction to minors. She initially claimed she had been hacked, but later apologized on air in June 2018. MSNBC stood by her throughout the ordeal. How do you give someone on the left who says stuff like that a job on your network? I get people on the right, because the right has traditionally been the party that's been anti-gay marriage and everything, and still kind of is, depending on who you ask. How do you give a left-wing nut like Joy Reid a position on your network because of that? This just goes to show you that all these people are nutbags, right? That they're posting stuff like this and they just get to apologize for it and move on with their life, right? Ridiculous. I've never liked Joy Reid because of that, right? You get a bad taste in your mouth whenever someone says they're against gay marriage, right? No matter who they are, right? Especially someone like me, right? I've had a bad taste in my mouth since I heard about all that in 2018. So December 2020, Reid accused President Trump of, quote, radicalizing his supporters similarly to quote, how we talk about the way Muslims act. The strange wording even prompted fellow lefty and, quote, squad member Representative Ilhan Omar to accuse her of Islamophobia. That was in 2020, and her show just now got canceled 5 years later, right? March 2021, Reid claimed conservatives would trade tax cuts for the ability to, quote, openly say the N-word, claiming they felt oppressed because they couldn't be openly racist. January 2022, on her nightly show, Reid called for anyone not vaccinated against COVID-19 to be taxed or fined, and expressed support for slashing sick pay for the unvaccinated. April 2020, you can't make this stuff up, folks. You can't make it up. April 2022, former NFL player Jack Brewer threatened to sue Reid for defamation after she linked children involved in his charity program who attended the signing of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' Stop Woke bill to, quote, child abuse. April 2022, while a lot happened in 2022 for Joy Reid, let me tell you. April 2022, Reid suggested Elon Musk's Mrs. Apartheid in his native South African following his $44 billion purchase of X, then called Twitter. September 2022, just month after month, man. Reid caused controversy by comparing Floridians fleeing the Sunshine State in the wake of Hurricane Ian to waves of illegal immigrants crossing the U.S. border. Yeah, I mean, things couldn't be more far from the truth right there with that statement. All right. November 2022, just in time for Thanksgiving, Reid took to airways blasting the fairy tale holiday, which she linked to slavery for good measure. I love it when people do stuff like, they're like, oh my gosh, that holiday is so racist. That holiday has to do with slavery. It always comes out whenever it comes to Thanksgiving. No one celebrates it like that anymore. That's not what it's about anymore, right? And then July 6, 2023, Reid claimed she was too scared to leave her house on July 4th because, quote, America is awash with guns, and that Americans seem to want to shoot people with them and use them for whatever, you know. That's what she said. That's the quote right there. That's what she said. We have even more. January 2024, responding to Trump's victory in the Iowa caucuses, Reid condemned the white Christians who supported him, claiming they wanted non-whites to bow down to them. July 2024, days after the first assassination attempt against President Trump, Reid suggested the shooting amounted to him bearing the consequences of promoting political violence. July 2024, it was a big month for her, July. 2 days later, Reid said elderly Joe Biden recovering from COVID-19 was, quote, exactly the same thing as Trump dodging an assassination attempt. Also in July 2024, on TikTok, Reid said Black people who look, quote, real weird and lonely, unquote, for not voting for former Vice President Kamala Harris in the November election that year. Or sorry, Black people would look real weird and lonely. Another July 2024, also on TikTok, big month for TikTok for Joy Reid. Reid said she would vote for Biden even if he was in a coma, and call voting against Trump a vote to, quote, keep Hitler out of the White House. Good thing that can come to fruition. Joy Reid's influence was not substantial enough for that. November 2024, right around my birthday. After Florida's Amendment 4 ballot measure that would have enshrined abortion rights in the state's constitution failed to pass, Reid said the Sunshine State was decreasing into, quote, extremist right-wing fascist-type government. A fascist-type government does not hold ballot measures on their ballots. They don't do that. They don't let their people vote. That's not how that works. Back to Thanksgiving again. In another Thanksgiving triad, Reid accused Republicans of worshiping Trump instead of Jesus in a bizarre rant where she told members of the MAGA crowd to, quote, make your own Thanksgiving dinner. November 2024, again, Reid falsely claimed President Trump wanted reparations for white people. And January 2025, Reid claimed immigration and customs enforcement raids under President Trump were performative, promoting border czar Tom Homan to call her dumber than a box of rocks. Yeah, definitely dumber than a box of rocks. A box of rocks could have kept a job on MSNBC. Joy Reid couldn't have even done that, right? So, peace out, Joy Reid. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Have a good one, right? So, nice highlight reel. So glad to see more and more winning. You don't see right-wing hosts being canceled, having their shows canceled, do you? You really don't. It's almost like they have nice things to say about people. They don't call their opponents Hitler. Anyways, that is all for this show, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back here. On Wednesday, and see you all then. We have so much more to talk about this week. I'm sure that there will be some more great news coming up then. Please share the show with friends. Give me a like, give me a follow on whatever platform you're watching this on. We are on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on X, we're on Rumble. You can follow me on TikTok. You can follow me on all the different platforms. Let me know how I'm doing. Send me a message on X. Let me know how I'm doing, right? If you like the show, right? Tell me how great it is. If you don't like the show, keep those thoughts to yourself. But if you like the show, sound off about it in the comments. Let people know how great the show is, right? We're growing our numbers every single day, right? We got to get more people watch this thing. I I got thoughts to share. I got opinions to give you all, right? We have so many stories to cover and not enough people watching it, right? Get more people to watch the show. Share this with friends. Let people know how great this show is. But with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your Monday. Keep saying Wednesday. It's Monday. Rest of your Monday. I hope I could have made it just a little bit better. Have a great Monday. We will see you back here Wednesday. Thank you all for spending the past 45 minutes with me. I know it's been a little bit longer episode than usual. We had to get through the whole long list of all Joy Reid's almost cancellations, right? She's been canceled for any single one of those, right? If anyone on the right said anything like that, they would have been canceled out. Well, let me tell you, right? But Joy Reid, she can get away from it. Anyways, have a great rest of your Monday. We will see you back here Wednesday, same time, 5 p.m. Eastern time on X, YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, all the platforms. Share it with friends. Give me likes. Give me follows. All right. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.